So your ancestors looked at the stars and they did not see hydrogen plasma. They saw what their brains were built to see. They saw stories, but the stories they saw were not random either. The archaeologist Giulio Magli at the Polytechnic University of Milan has spent years studying the astronomical alignments of ancient monuments, and what he found is consistent across cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Almost every ancient civilization looked at the stars and believed the same essential thing, that the sky was not empty space, that it was another world, a world inhabited by beings who were watching. In ancient Mesopotamia, the stars were not metaphors. They were literal gods. Each major star or constellation was a deity with a name, a personality, a domain of influence over human life. The planet we call Jupiter was Marduk, king of the gods. The planet we call Venus was Ishtar, goddess of love and war. When a conjunction of planets occurred in the sky, Babylonian priests did not record it as an astronomical event. They recorded it as a divine meeting. The gods were having a conversation up there, and the outcome of that conversation would determine whether the harvest would come or the floods would rise. This was not superstition in the way you might dismiss it today. This was the best available science. These were careful observers. They tracked the movements of celestial bodies with extraordinary precision over centuries. The Babylonian astronomical diaries, some of the oldest scientific records in human history, logged planetary positions night after night for over 700 years. They were not sloppy. They were meticulous. They just had a different theory for what they were measuring. And here is where it gets interesting, because the theory they had was not entirely wrong. Think about what the stars actually do to your life. Not metaphorically, literally, the sun is a star. It controls your sleep cycles, your body temperature, your vitamin D production, your mood, your crops, your seasons, your entire sense of what time it is. The moon, lit by a star, controls the tides, influences animal behavior, structured the oldest calendars ever made. The position of the Earth relative to other stars determined when your ancestors could plant, when they needed to harvest, when the rains would come. The sky was not separate from human life. It was embedded in it. The ancient belief that the stars governed human fate was not irrational. It was an attempt to model a real relationship, one that actually existed using the only conceptual tools available. They did not have physics. They had story. And story was enough to build the pyramids, to navigate the Pacific Ocean, to survive ice ages that wiped out most large mammals on the planet. Now go further back. Before Babylon, before Egypt, before any civilization. The paleoanthropologist Francesco De Rico at the University of Bordeaux has studied bone and ivory artifacts from Upper Paleolithic sites in Europe, some of them over 30,000 years old, and found notations that appear to track lunar cycles. Marks carved in groups, patterns that repeat on intervals consistent with the phases of the moon. These were not decorations, they were records. Which means that before your ancestors could write, before they built cities, before they domesticated animals or grew crops, they were already watching the sky, already counting, already trying to understand what the lights above them meant. Picture that, a human being, wrapped in animal skin, sitting at the mouth of a cave in Ice Age Europe, scratching marks into a piece of bone by firelight. No language, no mathematics, no concept of what a star even was, and yet already asking the question, already trying to decode the pattern. That impulse, that drive to look up and demand an explanation, is the same impulse that eventually produced Galileo's telescope, the Hubble Space Telescope, the James Webb. The hardware changed. The question never did. What are those lights? Different cultures gave radically different answers, and each answer reveals something about the civilization that produced it. In ancient Egypt, the stars of the Milky Way were the body of the goddess Nut, arched across the sky, swallowing the sun each night and giving birth to it each morning. The stars in her body were the souls of the dead, and the pharaoh, upon death, was believed to literally travel up into that sky and become one of them. The pyramids at Giza are aligned with extraordinary precision to specific stars in the constellation Orion. This was not an accident. It was architecture designed to launch a soul. In ancient China, the sky was a mirror of the imperial court. Every constellation corresponded to a feature of the earthly government. The North Star was the emperor, fixed and central. The stars that circled it were his ministers, his armies, his concubines. When a comet appeared or a star suddenly flared bright, it was a message from the celestial court about what was about to happen to the earthly one. Court astronomers were among the most powerful officials in the empire because they were the translators between heaven and earth. In the Pacific Ocean, the Polynesian navigators did something that still stuns modern sailors. Without compasses or instruments, they crossed the largest ocean on the planet by reading the stars, the waves, and the wind. The navigator Mao Pialug, one of the last traditional Polynesian wayfinders, could hold in his mind a star compass of over 200 stars and use their rising and setting points to calculate position across thousands of miles of open water. For Polynesian culture, the stars were not abstract. They were roads. The sky was a map. And learning to read it was the difference between finding an island and disappearing into the ocean forever. Each of these answers is different. Each of them is also a kind of truth. The Egyptians were right that the stars have something to do with death and time. The Chinese were right that the sky follows patterns that repeat on earthly scales. The Polynesians were right that the stars are navigational tools of extraordinary precision. None of them were right about the physics. All of them were right about the relationship. And then everything changed. In 1609, a man named Galileo Galilei pointed a modified Dutch spyglass at the sky and looked at Jupiter. He saw 4 small lights moving around it over several nights. Moving around a planet, not around the Earth. The implication was catastrophic. If those lights moved around Jupiter, then not everything moved around the Earth. And if not everything moved around the Earth, then the Earth was not the center of the universe. And if the Earth was not the center, then the whole story changed. The stars were not gods watching from above. They were not the bodies of the dead. They were not roads in the sky. They were objects, moving according to mathematics, obedient to forces that had nothing to do with human affairs. This should have been a relief. Instead, for many people, it felt like loss. Because here is what the old belief gave you that the new one didn't. Relationship, connection. If the stars were watching, then you mattered to them. If the sky was a story, then your life was part of that story. The ancient belief that the stars governed human fate was, at its core, a belief that you were not alone in the universe. That something out there, vast and ancient and luminous, cared about what happened to you. The modern answer is stranger and colder and in some ways more terrifying. The stars do not know you exist. They will burn long after everything you have ever built has turned to dust. They are indifferent in a way no god could ever be, because indifference requires no intention. And yet, you are made of them. The iron in your blood was forged in a stellar core that exploded billions of years before the Earth existed. The calcium in your bones, the oxygen in your lungs, the carbon in every cell of your body, all of it was cooked in the nuclear furnace of a dying star and scattered across space until gravity pulled it back together into a planet, into an ocean, into a cell, into you. The astrophysicist Carl Sagan said it this way: "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." Your ancient ancestors looked up and thought the stars were watching. They were not wrong about the relationship. They just had the direction backwards. Tonight, when you step outside and look up at a sky full of light, you are not looking at gods. You are not looking at the souls of the dead or the ceiling of a divine court or a road across the ocean. You are looking at your own origin story, written in fire, scattered across 400 billion light years of space. And it has been waiting for you to read it since before the Earth existed.